Okay. Paranam, Kridanakam, Narikelam. These are the Napunsaka words in Napunsaka. So just wanted to mention that Narikelam is a coconut in Napunsaka, but there is a word called Narikelaha also. Narikelaha in Pullingam. Narikelaha refers to coconut tree. Coconut tree. What is the word for tree in Sanskritam? Just tree? Vrukshaha. One of the words. There are many words. One of the words is Vrukshaha. Now, so Narikelaha, remember that this Vrukshaha is a Pullingam. The Narikelaha is also Pullingam here. So if there is a Narikelaha word, that refers to coconut tree. But Narikelam in Napunsakalingam, it refers to Narikela Phalam. Phalam is Napunsakalingam. So if it is a Napunsakalingam word Narikelam like this, it is a fruit. It is a fruit or nut of that tree. For example, another example like this is, let's say, mango. There is a mango tree and mango fruit. So for mango tree, Amraha is in Pullingam. If it is Pullingam, it's a Vruksha. It's a Amra tree or a mango tree. Then we make it Napunsakalingam, Amram, then it is a mango fruit. That distinction is interesting. Okay, next one is Suresh Mohade. I skipped some people. First person. Can you read?
These three words, right? Sanganakam, it means a computer. Vachayanam, Sopanam. All are Napunsakalinga.
Yeah. And what is the meaning of each word?
Sanganakam is something that computes. Vachayanam is basically it's open to the environment, or it's a window. Sopanam is steps.
Yeah. Steps. The next one, Mangala Bagini.
Udyanam, Upanetram, Kankatam Mahodaya? Kankatam.
Yes, Kankatam.
All are Napunsakalinga. All three.
Yes. Udyanam means?
Park.
Park, garden. Upanetram is, you know that.
But the comb pronunciation, I am not getting it correct. Kankatam.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Kankatam. So lingam, as we know, there are three lingams in Sanskritam: Pullingam, Strilingam, Napunsakalingam. And vachanam, there are three vachanams: ekavachanam, dvivachanam, bahuvachanam. Vachanam is numbers. So if there is one object, we use a singular or ekavachanam form of that word. And if there are two objects, then we use dvivachanam form of that word. and if there are more than two, then we use bahuvachanam, a plural form of that word. Okay, now first, let me go back to this one quickly. So here, let me explain this part. Sanganakam Kankatam, about the pronunciation itself. First, let's look at the pronunciation. Now, if everyone can mute unless they have questions. Okay.
You said this will be fifth letter in that Varnamala, right?
Yeah. So let's go back to Varnamala. Varnamala. So in the series of these consonants or vyanjanams, we have ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, cha, cha, ja, jha, nya, ta, tha, da, dha, na, ta, tha, da, dha, na, pa, pha, ba, bha, ma. These are the first 25 vyanjanam, or in bahuvachanam it is vyanjanani. So why are these all different lines? Based on their uchcharana sthanam, or the pronunciation position of their pronunciation, or position where the tongue or the lips touch within the mouth inside to produce these letters. Now, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, they are produced when the back of the tongue is touching the back of the throat here, okay? Like this. If you take this example, look at this picture. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the positions here. That first line, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, they have this guttural position, and this cha, cha, ja, jha, ya. Next line have this second palatal position. Means what? The top of the tongue is touching the roof here, the top. This called palate. And then we have this is murdha here, cerebral. Number 3, the third line, ta, tha, da, dha, na, that needs this position. The tongue, tip of the tongue rolled touches here. And number 4 is back of teeth, the tip of the tongue touching the back of the front teeth. That is the dental position. The fourth line, ta, tha, da, dha, na. And the last one is just the lips touching each other. Pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. So in that series, each column have their own peculiarity, how they are pronounced. But here for our study right now, the last column has a speciality. Okay? The last column, nga, nya, na, na, ma. What is the special about this? They need the help of nasal passage. Whereas the first 4 columns, they do not need the help of nasal passage. They have other special things about them. But the last column, they need the air to pass through this nose, okay, or nasal passage. So, for example, the first one we have ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. So, what are the position there? For ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, the position was the back of the throat, touching the the back of the tongue touching the back of the throat. So that is the guttural position. But the last column, the last letter in that line, nga, for that pronunciation, in addition to this position, the tongue still has to touch here. But in addition to that, the air will pass through the nasal passage. So that's like a dual effort is there. So one is the air is being stopped through the, when the air is trying to pass, is being forced out of the mouth, air is being stopped here by the tongue, by touching at the back here, but it also makes way for the air to come out of the nose at the same time. So we have the nga there, nga pronunciation. Similarly, the next line, the last column is nya. So for this, the second line's position is actually this one. So the top of the tongue has to touch here, but at the same time the air will pass through this nose. So that becomes nya. Similarly, the next line, last letter is na. So na, the tongue, the tip of the tongue touching here, and the air passing through this nose. And the last one is, not the last, the next one is na. Na, tip of the tongue touching the back of the teeth, same time air allowed to pass through the nose, na. And for the last one is ma, so the lips touching these two, each other, and the air allowed through the nose, that is ma. Okay, so examples for those English words, examples if we take. For the first one, nga, it is like you say ankle, that's an ankle, or uncle. So here we have writing in English is n here, and after that there is a ka, the syllable ka is there. So here when we are pronouncing, we are actually not pronouncing it as na there, we are not pronouncing it ankle. So it changes to nga sound because there is a ka after that, there is a ka letter after that. So this one sound changes to nga. Why? Because immediately after that ka is following, and ka belongs to what group here? It belongs to guttural. So to utter that guttural sound following it, this nasal consonant has to become guttural. So that guttural sound is nga. So it becomes ankle. So similarly we have it in kankatam. For example, in that kankatam. So here what is the order of the letters here, or the varana krama? So we have ka, like this, right? So here after this letter here, there is a ka word here, and this ka is guttural, or in Sanskritam it is called, what is it called? Kanthya. Kanthya. So Kanthya letter. So because of that is Kanthya, because of the Kanthya, this portion is involved there. Because of the Kanthya, we need a Kanthya letter, nasal letter, Nasika, anunAsika. This is called anunAsika, which is also Kanthya. Before that, we need means it automatically happens. Otherwise, it is not possible to pronounce when that letter of that same group is following it. It naturally changes to this last letter of the same group. So the last line, last column there, they are called anunAsika. So all of these are called anunAsika. Anunāsika means they have the position or airflow through the nasal passage also, not only nose but also. But in addition to that, air passing through the nose, each line has their own position that we just saw. So keeping that in mind, what are the examples here? One is here uncle or ankatam. So similarly we have sanganakam also, right? There is sanganakam. Sanganakam. So here what is happening, after this nga, ga is there. And ga belongs to this first line, which is kanthya or guttural. So because of that kanthya, this previous previous letter, it should be anunAsika of the same group. So we actually cannot write it like this. Yeah? Cannot write it like this, because if you write it like this, we are saying it as samganakam. But while pronouncing it, we are not doing that, right? We are saying it is sanganakam. So writing has to represent what we say, at least in Sanskritam. So similarly in kankatam also, kankanam is also a word. So kankatam also, we cannot write like either this or like this, kam or na, then ka, because we are not pronouncing it as ma, we are pronouncing it as na, kankatam. Now, okay, let's take the other examples and then I'll come back to that sanganakam. Now, for ya, what is the example? In English, it is enjoy. Let's say. Here, ja, which is one of the letters in this group. Before that, there is a nasal vyanjanam or consonant, and that is not, when we pronounce it, it changes to ya. Enjoy. So, I don't know how different people pronounce it. Enjoy. If there is a pause here, it might be en. But if you pronounce it together, it naturally changes to this sound, enjoy. So in Sanskritam, when we pronounce such words, for example, what is one of the words? Let's say anjana. So anjana, here there is ja, so we should not write it any other way, like this. Because the pronunciation of this anusvara, this is not anunAsika, right? The dot is anusvara, whereas this ya is anunAsika. The pronunciation is different. And when we say anjana, we are pronouncing it as ya here. So you can try to do it in a slow motion. When we say see your tongue is moving towards that top position here, right? Here. This portion is moving towards here when we are saying is touching here. And then at the same time the air is moving like this, ja. Then ja, the air stops moving from this place, it just becomes ja, still touching here. Anja, na.
Excuse me, Sanjeev.
Yeah.
So it's the sound following or before, because in this case with the sanganakam and karnakam, aren't they both followed by that first family? I mean, with the ka and ga.
Yes. Yeah.
So then why does one become different than the other?
No, they are the same. Sanganakam, still there is a nga only. Kankatam also there is na only.
Sanjay, the way that it is written in English, in the first one it is
Yeah, sorry, that was incorrect actually.
Oh, that is incorrect.
Yeah.
So I'm totally confused. Okay.
No, sorry, thank you. Thank you, Sridhar. Yeah.
Thank you.
The transliteration is incorrect, but the pronunciation you do in either way it is correct. I'll come to that. That's one thing. The transliteration of that same thing, what is written in Sanskritam there, is different. But in either way, it is correct. That I'll come to that in a little bit after finishing these examples.
I have a question about the spelling. If you can bring the writing you just did. I just have a question about how can you tell the difference between the na and the, because when it's written, is it really just the dot, or is there any other?
No, it is just a dot.
Okay. Because sometimes I miss it, so I just
yeah.
Mahodaya, what does Anjana mean?
Anjana, Anjana means some kind of paste we can say.
Okay.
Anybody has any better meaning for that? I don't know. Let me look at
it. You mean some medical paste?
Yeah, medical paste.
Okay.
Do you mean like a Band-Aid or a liquid?
No, it's a paste.
Like a
ointment. You mean ointment.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is the usual meaning. There are other meanings also. But the Anjana is like ointment.
And this is like that Amritanjanam.
Yeah, Amritanjanam.
Okay.
Also, it also means this soot of the lamp, the blackish thing which comes up. That's Anjan.
Okay.
Then we have the next anunAsika na. No. So it's like and. What is change? And so this, because the da is there, this letter, when we pronounce it, the anunAsika before that, the pronunciation changes to na. Like, I'm not sure about if you speak in English, it could be different, like and. Yeah, the tip of that, maybe that this, especially in English, what I have heard is that this position doesn't exist. Like, so they mostly use this position here in between, the native speakers there, like and. So, but for me, it is, I use this position and. In Sanskritam, example for the word is, there are many words like anda is one word, anda is egg. So this is a da letter. So before that we have the anunAsika. Another example in na. Any example in English?
Which na are we looking for?
The tata dadhana.
Okay.
10th class. 10th.
Yeah, 10th. 10th anthropology or something like that. So this na, 10th na, that na. Sanskritam we have many words, but na, like we have anjana, we have that anjana, na, that is the anunAsika. No, but we need the one.
Like intent.
Yeah, intent. No. Intent, yeah, in English. But now in Sanskritam we have
Anta.
anta. Anta. Anta means end. Anta. Or andha. So you can use anta, andha, etc. And then for the ma, like we have pump. This is simple. So then in Sanskritam we have ambara.
Amba also.
Amba. Yeah. Amba means Amba means mother.
Ampa.
Ambara means sky and also vastram, cloth. Both the meanings are there. Anyway, so that is about the pronunciation. Now coming back to these words here. Sanganakam, Kankatam. Kankatam, I think there's no. Is there any question about Kankatam? That is clear, right? There is no question about that. And the Sanganakam, here I wrote it like this, but this should have been like this in the transliteration. However, pronouncing like this also is correct. So now, going back to the slide here. Anyway, I'll fix that transliteration, but however, for your understanding, Sanganakam is usually like this, correct? Sanganakam. So because Ga is here and Ga following that anunAsika is like that. But if we pronounce it like this, then also it is correct in Sanskritam. So that is why we can write it like this. Note that writing should be as per the pronunciation. Then why it is now? What is the anusvara pronunciation? This is anusvara, right? What is the difference in anusvara and this nga?
That is a ma.
Anybody? How is the anusvara pronounced?
Like that.
Yeah. But now, by definition, what is its position?
Open lips.
Oshtya, which is this thing. What do you call it? Through the lips.
The last family, the labial, closed lips.
So we should again go back to our Shiksha. If anybody has Shiksha Shastram, we had covered that in the class. You can refer to that later. So anusvarasya sthanam. So we have this in the anunAsika, the last line in that series of those consonants. So each one has what did we say? Each one has the position of that line. In addition, they have the air passing through the nose, right? So for example, nga, this nga in Kankatam, that nga has a position of kantha, throat, because back of the jufa, back of the tongue touches the back of the throat. So that is the position. In addition, air passes through the nose. So this is the dual position, the last letters here, anunAsika letters. So similarly, the nya has air passing through the air, plus it has the palatal position. The third one has the murdha position, but air passing through the air, nose. No, it's only no. Now ma, what is the position? Ma, we already said that its position as per the line is the lips closed, but the air also passes through the nose. So if you look at that, if you remember the diagram, when we are trying to pronounce ma, air is being pushed into the oral cavity and being stopped at the lips. Okay? And then air also passes through the nose. That is ma. Now for anunAsika, the air doesn't enter the oral cavity. It passes only through the nose. Anunasvara. For anusvara, the air passes only through the nose, at least ideally. Okay? That is the anusvara pronunciation. Whereas all these anunAsikas, including ya, nga, yam, na, na, ma, these 5, they have dual positions. Okay? For example, ma has this air passing through the oral cavity, stopping at the lips and also passing through the nose. Similarly, na, the air being stopped by the tip of the tongue at the back of the teeth. Okay? That is where the air is stopped in the oral cavity for na. And also it passes through the nose. That is na. So each one of them have these positions plus the nose. But whereas anusvara, only nose. Okay. So that difference we should clearly understand between anusvara and anunAsika letters. So the anusvara is not a vyanjanam. It is neither a swara. Swara means vowel. So though we say that if generally I, U, and at the end we ammaha, they are not swara. They are not part of the swara. Only up to A, I, O, Au. Until Au, we have 13 swaras. Whereas this anusvara, is not anusvara. Though we represent generally while reading, while saying swaras, we say and aha. Yeah. This is anusvara. This is not anusvara. This is visarga. Is a composite sound here. Only this part is anusvara. Only this part is visarga. So, what is this part? This is not This is just sound. Okay? Sound. Because just sound is not possible to make. So it needs some help, some vowel cells, some vowel especially. So this sound has to follow a vowel, and similarly visarga should follow some vowel. Only then they can be pronounced. Okay? So it rides on a vowel or it follows a vowel, and then it comes out through the nose. Okay? So when we say so we are starting with a, and then the air passes through only nose. So with the slow motion, it is difficult to do that. So now coming back to this Sanganakam. So all those other examples we saw, Anjanam, Kankatam, and then others like Andam. So there we are saying that because after this nasal letter there is a Vyanjanam, so we have to use for pronunciation, naturally it changes to the last anunAsika Vyanjanam of that line. Okay? That's why you are writing like this. Now, but in this, and let's take the other example. So when the following letter, following Vyanjanam is not one of those lines. For example, you take this Sanshaya. Okay? Sa, and there is a ya, and there is a ya. Sha, and there is a ya. So here, after sa, there is a nasal sound we want. Sang, sha, ya. So how are we going to pronounce this nasal sound? So there is, this sha doesn't belong to any line of those first 5 lines. This sha belongs to the last uncategorized line, right? That is, what are those Vyanjanams in that line?
Sibilant.
Yeah, what are those? These ones, like? Yara, lava, sha, sha, sa, ha. These, not all are sibilants. These are sibilants. Okay. Yeah, sha is a sibilant. So, where is that? So here, this sha is one of those yara, lava, sha, sha, sa, ha. The last 8. So that last line doesn't have its own, what you call, the anunAsika letter, right? Like the first 5 have their own last column. But this one doesn't have its own, this group, yara, lava, sha, sha, sa, ha, 8, which is like a separately kept. It doesn't have its own nasal letter, anunAsika. So here comes the use of anusvara. So here the pronunciation becomes anusvara. So when we say sanshaya, see that sang, so we are making that sound. Here the lips are not inward. No other part in the oral cavity should be inward. It doesn't matter whether we close the lips or not close the lips. The air passes only through the nose here. Sanshaya. And because there is a sha here, after this anusvara pronunciation, normal rule for the sha applies. Means normal pronunciation position for the sha applies. Sha is a palatal, like cha, cha, ja, ja. It has the same position, sha. So after this anusvara, sang, sha. So that juha or the tongue goes to that sha position, like similar to cha. Sanshaya. So similarly, we have that Sanskrita. Sa. After that, there is a sa. So sa also falls in that last line. So we have that Sanskrita. It is not Samskrita or not Sanskrita. It is Sanskrita. It is anusvara. Now coming back to this Sanganakam. Now Sanganakam, we have ga there from the first line, but before that we need a nasal sound. So naturally it becomes like this nga. However, it can also be pronounced as anusvara. Why? Like how can it be pronounced as anusvara? With little bit pause there. Sanganakam. It is difficult, maybe not very natural, but still it is technically valid and possible in Sanskritam, in Sanskrit language, because this sam is considered as a separate word in Sanskritam. Separate word. So whereas when it is a single word like andam, anjanam, it is a single word. Whereas sam being a prefix, that is considered as a separate word. When it is a separate word, this kind of pronunciation with anusvara is possible. With sanganakam. Sanganakam. Whereas you quickly pronounce it, it is sanganakam. So both the pronunciations are valid considering this arrangement in the Sanskrit language.
But does that change the meaning? Does that change the meaning of the word?
No, it doesn't change the meaning, just the pronunciation.
Okay, so may I ask a question? to clarify, concatum could not be used with the anusvara. It's only because it's in that alternate category preceding it that allows that. Oh, thank you.
Right. Like andam, kankatam, they are single words. We cannot use anusvara because they are close. They are single word. In the single word, they have to be pronounced like this. Kankatam. So if somebody's name, for example, my name only, like Sanjeev. So we have some. So I can pronounce that means write like this, or I can write it like this. But, so while preparing this book, I'm preparing this book. I was in a dual mind, which one to, in this Sanskritam, Sanganakam, which one to use, Sanganakam or Sanganakam. So in later part of the book, I use this. So to keep it consistent, here also I use this, but this I forgot to change.
It was just interesting because it seemed right. It didn't make sense in my mind, but now it does because it's following the sa.
Yeah, following the sa.
Sut.
Following the sum, yeah, sa and ma, yeah. All right. Any other question before we move forward?
Thank you for that.
So we have did this astikim, nastikim, okay, astikim, na, asti. So we did that. Any question on asti, nasti? Asti, nasti, amna. This was the exercise that you can do it later if you have not done this in the book, but otherwise there was a online homework also. Then this is just some slide I put there, so somebody can just read this. Vehicles, like I had the slide there on Shariram. So similarly, there is one called for Vahanani. Vehicles. So in the olden days, none of these vehicles existed. So these are all new words in Sanskritam. So previously we had, previously means ancient times, we had something called a Ratha and Shakatam. So those are some of the words which are used. Vahanam. Vahanam was a common word. Vahanam is something which carries forward. Vahanam. Okay. Anyone want to read this? Radhika?
Did you ask me? I'm sorry, did you say my name?
Can you read this page?
Chatrayanam. That second letter, I'm not sure. Chakra.
Chakra.
Yeah. Lokayanam. Lohapai. No, Pati.
Yeah.
Lohapati. Vimanam. Nauka. Adagrayam. Udagrayanam.
Udagrayanam.
Okay, Udrayana. Okay, I'm going to skip it. Vatakayanam. Rugna Vahika.
Vahika.
Vahika. Bharavahakam. Agni Shamkavahanam.
Agnishamaka.
Agnishamaka. Trichakrika. Trichakrika.
Yeah.
And Dvichakrika.
Yeah, Dvichakrika. One thing, Lohapati. So this is just Loha means metal or steel. Pathi means one which goes on that, like a rail. Nauka, ship and boat. We have Udagrayanam, the helicopter. Udagra. Yanam is also Vahanam. Yanam, just to say, if you say Yanam, is also Vahanam. So you can say Udagra Vahanam or Yanam. Udagra means up and forward. Ut Agra. Up and forward. It goes up and forward. That's how this new word is made. And then we have Bhatakayanam. Bhataka means rental. Bhataka. Yanam is Vahanam. You can call it Vahanam also. No, Yanam instead of Yanam, you can Vahanam. Here, Rugna Vahanam, you can call Vahika. So it doesn't matter. Rugna Vahanam, Rugna Vahika, or Rugna Yanam. Rugna means, what is Rugna?
Rugna is Rogi, taking the Rogi.
Patient, yeah.
But, Vahika becomes, is a Strilingam, but Vahanam becomes a
Pulling.
Right? Neuter gender.
Napunsakaling, correct.
Yeah. So why same thing is in both the genders?
Yeah. We can say Vahanam also, Vahika also. Doesn't matter. Bharavahakam, truck, Agnishamaka Vahanam. Again, wherever there is Vahakam is there, you can add Vahanam or Yanam or Vahika. They all mean the same thing, but the gender is different. You know that Vahika is Strilingam, Vahanam, Yanam, Vahakam, they are all Napunsakalingam. Similarly, we have Trichakrika, three-wheeler. So this chakra is being used just to, easy to know that is Trichakrika. Dvichakrika. So if you call it Dvichakra Vahanam, that is also correct. It's not like that we must use this Dvichakrika only. Dvichakra Vahanam, Trichakra Vahanam, that is fine. And this Chakra, Lokayanam, Loka means people. And Yanam, again same. The Yanam is something, conveyance, Vahanam. Vimanam can also be called Vimana Yanam. Vimanam is aeroplane, Vimana Yanam. Then Chakrayanam is again wheel, technically one which has wheel. But this Chakrayanam is also found in some of the older Sanskrita koshas, Sanskrit dictionaries, one which used for the pleasure conveyance, like that. General journey. That's why I have picked up this word, Chakrayana. Okay. Next one, Atra, Tatra, Anyatra, Sarvatra, Kutra. These words, like in the previously we studied different words like the words representing the objects, for example, like pustakam, gruham, vatayanam, etc., balakah, balika, etc. But also we studied some words like aham, mama, bhavan, etat, tat, and kaha, ka, kim. These words which also can become part of the vakyam or the sentence. For each of these words, we have seen they had some lingam. Like for example, pustakam is napunsakalingam, balakah pullingam, balika strilingam, and etat napunsakalingam, and saha is pullingam, sa strilingam, etc. However, there are some words we studied already, like for example, what is that? Na. Na and am. These do not have lingam. These are called avyayam. Avyayam. Avyayam means non-declinables, or just simply they do not have lingam. They do not change their form in different when they are used in a sentence. Whereas balaka, gruham, they can change their form to different form depending on the role in a sentence. That we'll see a little bit later. But like for example, na, am, they do not change their form. And similarly, one other avyayam we have already studied. Where is this? Once again, I want to remind that this kim, which is being used here, sa pushpadhani asti kim, this has no gender. This is like avyayam. However, we have studied like kaha, ka, kim. Okay. So this kim as an napunsakalingam is different. For example, if I say kim phalam asti, using kaha, I can say kaha balakaha, means which balaka. If I translate this in English, kaha balakaha, which boy. Okay. Similarly, ka balika, which girl. Similarly, I can say kim phalam, which fruit. Kim phalam. So here these have genders. Kaha, ka, kim, which. Whereas if I say saha balakah asti kim, tat phalam asti kim, in this case I am using kim as a question mark. Is it? Not as a which word here. If it is used as a which like this, kim phalam asti, means which fruit is that? There it is a napunsakalinga word. But where if I use tat phalam asti kim, is it a fruit? Then this kim is a different word, which is avyayam. Okay? So this kim as a question mark can be used with any other word, like saha balaka asti kim, which we are studying, like saha balaka asti kim, saha balika asti kim. So that word, when used as a question mark, becomes like is it? So that is an avyayam. Whereas here it is kim phalam tat, means which fruit. Here it is a different. So keep that distinction in mind.
You said that's a pronoun, right? Kim phalam asti, that's a pronoun.
Which one? Let me see.
Kim phalam asti.
Yeah. So are you asking it as a kim phalam asti? Which fruit is that?
So this kim here is a pronoun or?
Yes, pronoun. It's a pronoun. It is a pronoun. These are pronouns. Kaha, ka, kim, these are pronouns. Tat, etat, saha, they are also all pronouns. Eshaha, saha, esha, sa, tat, etat, those are also pronouns. Okay? So now we are coming to this atra, tatra, anyatra, sarvatra, kutra. Note that these are all avyayams. They do not have any gender.
Yeah, but sorry, how to understand when word has a gender and when it isn't has like any gender?
So, sorry, if I understand your question, when to know it has a gender, when it is not?
Yeah, because for example, if we will put our attention to the end of the word, when like it is e or a, so it is female. When it is like m, for example, so this like male, and some are like so it is like no like middle gender, and when it is with anusvara, so this is the male gender. But here the book was like has this end like m, but you said that this is no gender. Yeah. So how to understand when we are looking at the word, what kind of gender it is? Like I mean, if like how to understand that this word has no gender?
Yeah. Generally, the words, except the generally the words which directly refer to some object, they have some gender.
Oh.
So it doesn't actually depend on how it ends. Like for example, if you say balakaha, so we have seen balakaha, balika. I'll try to write clean so that you should not get confused with what I'm writing here. And pustakam. Okay, so mostly the words which refer to some physical or other objects, they refer to they have some gender. Whereas like when we say atra, tatra, or say na means no, no or not. So it doesn't refer to any object, so it has no gender. Or am, when you say am means yes, it doesn't refer to any object, no gender. And similarly atra, which we are going to study just now, so it doesn't refer to any object, it has no gender, so they are all in avyayam. Mostly this rule. There may be some exceptions, but having said that, coming back to these words which refer to some object, so they could be pullingam, they could be strilingam, or there could be napunsaka. But just by looking at how it ends, like a and visarga, a, e, it is not definitely possible to say that it is a pullingam, it is a strilingam, it is a napunsaka. So this should be clear to all of you. Okay? We are looking at only simple words like this for now, for our easy understanding, that the words ending in like this a and visarga, those kind of words we are looking at, and they are pullingam, they are masculine gender, like balakaha, ramaha, kandukkaha, parvataha, mushakaha, etc. So we are looking this only very limited category of words, but there are other words also which are ending in some other, not ending in a and visarga. They can also be pullinga. Okay? They can also be masculine. Similarly, we are looking at only few words or certain category of words which are like this, this pattern, they follow this pattern. So, balika or what are the other words? Like lata, uma, like this. They are strilinga words, feminine words ending in but there could be there are other words in Sanskritam which are ending in some other syllable, but they can be also feminine words. Similarly, this also, nadi also. Similarly, also, pustakam, like this. We are only looking at only certain type of words or certain words which are following this pattern for our initial simple understanding. Okay.
Okay. So pustakam, what kind of gender has this word? Is it male? Or no, is it middle? Like
yeah, it is napunsakalingam, neuter.
Mm-hmm.
It is a neutral gender, napunsakalingam. Okay. So we are looking at, in our initial study, we are looking at neuter words which follow this pattern, okay? Like pustakam, phalam, parnam, netram, like this, okay? Or vatayanam.
Okay.
Or gruham. So they are all ending in So these are neuter words that we are studying. But there are other words, definitely there are other words in Sanskrit language which are neuter, napunsakalingam, but they may not end in they may end in some other syllable. Okay?
Is putram, is it putra or putram? Is it neuter gender? Putra. Putra is akaranta.
Pullinga.
Okay, so the plural would be what? Putrani? No, it came in some shloka, and so the lady was putrani.
Putraha.
Okay.
So, some of the general or common words what we generally use, and we should be we should be clear about those, understand those lingams clearly, because in some of the other Indian languages, when those words are used, by default they just end them in For example, devalayam, shlokam, namaskaram. Okay? But all these three words are pullingam in Sanskritam. Okay? So when we use them, we should use them as pullinga words, just like balaka or rama, like namaskaraha. So note that this has to go into your mind or brain. And whenever you say namaskara, just say namaskara, not namaskaram. Namaskara in Sanskritam we are talking. When you are talking other languages, fine, you can use whatever you want. But in Sanskritam, when we are speaking, when you are using these words, we should use them in the correct lingam or correct form. So for namaskara, we have namaskaraha, devalayah, and what is the other one I said?
Shlokaha.
Shlokaha. Sorry, shlokaha. Shlokaha. And similarly, there is a prashna also, prashnaha. So keep these, practice these, like not to use prashnam, shlokam, namaskaram. Like.
What is the gender of raga? Ragam or raga?
Which one?
Raga.
Raga. Ragaha. Ragaha, yogaha. Not yogam, yogaha. Okay. So now atra, tatra, anyatra, sarvatra, kutra. So these are genderless. They are not referring to any particular object. Tatra, atra means here, and the meaning is given here. Tatra means there, anyatra elsewhere, sarvatra everywhere, kutra is where. This is a question. Kutra is like we have kaha, etc. Kaha, ka, they are all question words like kaha, ka, kim. Like that, this kutra is also question word. See, now most of these question words in Sanskritam, they start with like a ka syllable. Kaha, kim, kutra, etc. So here, atra, tatra, anyatra, sarvatra, kutra. So using these, there are few sentences given here. So this one picture shown here, this short hand means it is near, is here, and this long hand is away, tatra. So using this, you can practice some of these word sentences. So this understanding gender is a little bit confusing for many of us, including myself, who are coming from whose base language or mother tongue is not having that kind of concept, where the different objects, they have this random, seemingly random genders, and when we are trying to use those words, it is confusing what gender it is, and it is confusing for some time. But over a period of time, when we practice with just like any other language, it will come to us. When you are saying gruham, it is gruham. It's a Napunsakalinga or a neuter word, etc. It is a practice. There is no magic way to just understand these or a rule that this gender applies to this word. But however, we can remember that if it is a living being like animal, that last time you saw that animal, if the actual object is male, the word referring to that object is generally male. There are some exceptions, but generally you can take this rule for the animals. And if an animal has a female gender, then the word referring to that object is also a feminine gender, like we have seen balika, nartaki, etc. But for non-living, there could be different words with different genders, and to refer to the same, like we have seen vahika, vahanam. Vahika becomes strilingam, vahanam is pullingam. So the lingam entirely depends on the word there, not the object. This is one of the things what there are many YouTube videos available. You can later on, if you have time and interest, you can check like how the languages affect our thinking. A particular language affect our thinking and cognitive abilities and thoughts and thinking abilities. This is one of those things which I have found. This using lingam, also one of the things. There are other things in Sanskrit language also. Like one of the thing is like how these words are formed itself, like depending on, and I said that the character, the word defines the character of that object. So when we know that, then our thought process changes when using that language, and it becomes very sharp. So lingam is one that. So when we are using this in the different words in a sentence, we have to recollect or recall that lingam before using it, because some other words in that sentence, in the same sentence, also have to follow that same lingam. So we'll come to that later when we study that. So we'll have to actually form that, prepare that sentence in our brain before actually saying it. We will have to form those thoughts, very solid thoughts, firm them up before bringing them out. So there is a little bit preparation involved. So our thought process really improves there. So pustakam atra asti. So who wants to go first here? Sure. Can read the sentence.
Mahoday, you're not recording this?
I'm recording, yeah.
Okay.
It's not recording? No, it is recording, yeah. Can you please read? Let me know what happens. Yeah, can you please read from the first line? Or do you want to read?
I'll read, yes. Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah.
It's just the slide keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pustakam atra asti. Griham tatra asti. Vrikshaha atra asti.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, while reading this, just note that you already know atra, tatra. You also know gruham, and the pictures are already given. There is nothing.
Yes.
It is not difficult. Parvataha atra asti. The mountain is there. Okay.
That's Dvichatrika atra asti, and Chatrayakam atra tatra asti.
Chakrayanam.
Chakrayanam.
Tatra asti. So this is using atra, tatra, and the other words are just a repetition for just practice purpose, like Chakrayanam, the Chakrika, etc. They are just a repeat of what was already there before we studied. We are just adding atra, tatra, etc. Now, what about asti? Asti. Asti, a word also we have studied become asti and nasti. Okay? So what is the gender of asti?
No gender.
No gender. Why?
Because tatra doesn't have a gender.
No, it is a verb. It's a kriya padam or a verb. Verbs in Sanskritam, they do not have genders.
Oh.
Okay? Only nouns have genders.
Oh.
In other languages, some other languages, words also have genders. Okay? But in Sanskritam, no gender for verbs. Okay? But only nouns have genders. Okay, next page. Who can do? Jay? Or Jay?
Yes, thank you. Parnam atra asti.
So now, yeah, go ahead.
Phalam kutra asti. Phalam anyatra asti.
So this we are adding like one more point here, like atra, tatra was in the last page. So here we are, first is atra. We see that leaf here, paranam atra asti. And then phalam kutra asti. The question is, where is the fruit? Kutra, where? Phalam kutra asti. Phalam anyatra asti. Because we don't see the phalam here in this block. Now, note again, just a note on the punctuation marks once again. Asti here, question mark is there. Phalam kutra asti. If this question mark, punctuation mark is not there, then also it is correct. No? It is a question because kutra is a question word. Kutra itself represents a question mark and the question word here. So technically, if you don't see that in writing, the question mark, that's fine. Okay, next line.
Chandraha atra asti. Suryaha kutra asti. Suryaha anyatra asti. Vyajanam atra asti. Utpitika kutra asti. Utpitika anyatra asti. मापिका अत्र अस्ति पेटिका कुत्र अस्ति पेटिका अन्यत्र अस्ति मार्जारः अत्र अस्ति गजः कुत्र अस्ति गजः अन्यत्र अस्ति वायुः कुत्र अस्ति वायुः सर्वत्र अस्ति जलं कुत्र अस्ति जलं सर्वत्र अस्ति नास्ति.
So here two more words here. Sarvatra asti nasti. Like sarvatra is everywhere. Vayu, air. And jalam kutra asti. Jalam sarvatra. Whatever you want to say. Water is not everywhere. Sarvatra nasti. At least for us.
I have one question, David.
Yeah.
Actually, two questions. Earlier, when we were saying Kim Palam Asti, right? Which fruit is it? It is. So there you are saying that it is Napunsaka Linga of the Kim is used in the Napunsaka Linga. But we also heard that in Sanskrit that the sequence of word doesn't change. So Palam Asti Kim, does it change the context or the tone of the sentence?
Yeah. Generally, the order does not change. I mean, order changing is okay generally, but not always. So it depends on the tone also, and sometimes, like when there are other words which we come across, we'll see later, like cha, eva, etc., where the positioning, the order becomes important. If you change the order, the meaning changes. So generally, where we are talking about subject, object, and verb, that order can be changed. But some things like this, kim phalam asti, phalam kim asti, it depends on the tone also, right? The meaning changes there. Yes.
Similarly, here jalam sarvatra na asti. Here it is written water is not everywhere. But basically, it could also be say that water is not anywhere. Anywhere we have not really come. What is the word for anywhere in Sanskrit? Or is this?
So what do you want to say?
No, if I want to say that something is not there anywhere. Like here we are saying water is not everywhere, which means it is there in particular place or places. Yeah. But I want to say something is not there anywhere.
So anywhere generally, I'll just add here, just because you're asking. So we can use kutra and api together. Kutra api nasti. Jalam kutra api nasti. Actually, it is two words. Kutra api nasti. So together it becomes kutra api.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So what is the next one? There is abhyasa. Abhyasa, you can do it, or I'll also send it later. This one we can do next time. We'll cover this. I think we'll do the Subhashitam and we'll stop. Subhashitam.
You want me to read it?
If somebody can read. Who wants to read? So just keeps jumping. Veena?
I can try, but
yeah.
Okay. Nasti vidha sam vidasam, right? Chakshuhu nasti sarya samam tapaha.
Satya samam.
Satya samam tapaha.
Tapa.
Okay. Nasti raga samam duhu kam
Dukkham.
Nasti tyaga samam sukham. Yeah, sukham.
So here it is Nasti Vidya Samam. So because we are talking about Asti Nasti, so I just found this Subhashitam relevant here. Nasti using Nasti. So Vidya. So I think this Dya is challenging for in Devanagari for many of you. Like so, it is a Dya. Okay? So this Dya is combination of the and ya. Okay, the and ya, which appears like this when as a conjunct font here. Whereas there is another one which is dha. So that should not be confused with this the. This is diya combined. This is dha. And how the how this dha and ya written together is written like this dhya. So this dhya is this. This dhya is actually this order dha and ya, and this dhya, if it is no what you call this circle on the top here like this, it is just the and ya. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, it is Mahaprana, isn't it?
Yeah, Mahaprana. There is a difference there.
Yeah.
One and this is no air in this. The lower one no air. This is more air, more energy. Okay, Ushra Bhagini, you are expert in this English. Can you help? That's really good. I like that. That's a good translation.
Yeah, I wrote a big essay on it afterwards, after I talked to you.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find my notes. Yeah, here it is. So I said, Nasti vidya samam chakshuhu. Of all the eyes, there is nothing equal to vidya, like jnana chakshu, that is jnana chakshu. There is nothing greater equal to jnana chakshu, the eye of knowledge. It is the knowledge we get from within, which gives us clarity in intuitive knowledge and wisdom. Nasti satyasamam tapaha. Tapaha means austerity. Practicing of austerities brings us closest to our true nature or natural essence. There is nothing greater or equal to that truth. So tapaha means to heat up. Example, by placing on fire the metal, gold. It removes all the dross and purifies it. So when gold is placed in the fire, its impurities get burned and its luster increases without purifying the body. Without purifying the body, one cannot reach that final stage of yoga. Yoga meaning being in union with the self. And nasti raga samam dukkham. There is no sorrow equal to or greater than attachment. Why? Because the more we are attached, we are bound by that object of attachment, whether it is a relationship or a possession. It is the one thing that causes greed and fear of losing. fear in us, because we are afraid to lose it, that which we are attached to, whether it is a belief or whether it is a relationship or an object or a possession, etc. So greed causes us to become selfish, and fear is the pain that results from the loss of that attachment. Then it is one nasti tyaga samam. Nasti tyaga samam. Tyaga is renunciation. Oh, I had written on tapas also that there are 3 kinds of austerities. Body, I'm going to make it long or I can make it short. I think I'll just make it short because this is not a Gita class.
2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes more. I'll just cover that. Nasti tyaga savam sukham. There is nothing equal to or greater than sacrifice or renouncing to achieve peace and happiness. In Bhagavad Gita, he has constantly said, give up, give up, give up, you know. And he has said in many shlokas that when you give up, you attain peace. So, like for example, in chapter 12, he says, better than mechanical practice is knowledge, better than knowledge is meditation, better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of actions. For peace immediately follows such renunciation. So there is no greater happiness than tyaga. Then in the austerities I had written, and quickly go over it if I have the time. Body, there are 3 kinds of austerities he has said in shlokas 14, 15 and 16 in Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga, chapter 17. By sincerely practicing austerities, human beings can uplift and transform their lives from the mundane to the divine. Such austerity should be performed without show, with pure intent, in a peaceful manner, in conformance with the guidance of the spiritual master and the scriptures. So when the body is dedicated to the service of the pure and saintly in all sense indulgences in general and sexual indulgence in general, it is acclaimed as austerity of the body. Each austerity should be done with cleanliness, simplicity and care for not hurting others. So the shloka number 15 is austerity of speech. Anuveda karam shaucham and all he has given. And austerity of speech is speaking words that are truthful, unoffending, pleasing and beneficial for the listener. The practice of the recitation of Vedic mantras is also included in the austerity of speech. And then speak the truth in such a way that it is pleasing to others. Never speak untruth, though it may be pleasant. This is the eternal path of morality and dharma. Shloka number 16 is talking of the austerity of the mind. It involves cultivating serenity of thought, gentleness, silence, self-control, and purity of purpose. All these are declared as the austerity of the mind. So, like they say, watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become character. And character, it becomes your destiny. So, each thought we dwell upon has consequences. And thought by thought, we forge our destiny. For this reason, to veer the mind from negative emotions and make it dwell upon the positive sentiments is considered austerity of the mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhanyavad. So, Kayena Vacha Manasa, 3 types of tapa. And just a quick here, just words meaning, that was a great explanation, but just a quick words meaning here. Vidya is knowledge, Chakshu is eyes, Chakshu eye, and Satya is truth, Tapa is shelter. Heating up, literally, means the austerity, that was the inference. Raga is attachment, Dukkham is sorrow, Tyaga is renunciation or leaving, and Sukham is happiness.
Happiness of peace.
And what are these from? What are all of these shlokas from?
Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
No, not this one.
This is not a Bhagavad Gita shloka, it is a Subhashitam.
This is just Subhashitam, randomly I picked somewhere, but what she was, Usha Bhagini was reading, that is Bhagavad Gita, referring to shlokas and their meanings, relevant to this Subhashitam. Okay, so.
That was very good. Thank you, Bhagini. Thank you, Mahodaya.
Thank you. Dhanyawada. We'll wrap up. Namaskara.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is the class over?
Namaskar.
Yeah, class is over.
Oh, is it only half an hour?
8 to 9:30.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಮಹೋದಯ.